Durham had another long day in the field at the start of their latest LV County Championship game against high-flying Sussex at the Brighton and Hove Jobs.com county ground, where both Luke Wright and Ben Brown struck wonderful hundreds as they smashed their county's record 6-wicket partnership. Paul Collingwood inserted after winning the toss, and it didn't take long for Chris Rushworth to have Chris Nash caught at the wicket for 10 with a total of 19. There was enough in both the pitch and conditions to validate Collingwood's decision to have a bowl, especially when Michael Yardie edged Graham Onions to Kumar Sangakkara to go with the home side on 30 for 2 after a dozen overs. Ed Joyce missed the last game while away with Ireland. He'd started this summer in fabulous form at the top of the order, but with Nash fit again, the Sussex skipper slipped in at number 4 and again looked in terrific touch with some typically sublime shots. But this time he was unable to go on, and on 21 he was bowled by Usman Arshad almost as if he hadn't picked up the ball in time. That put Sussex on 63 for 3. And when Luke Wells edged Mark Wood behind quarter of an hour before lunch to go for 19, the score read 81 for 4, and Durham would have been very pleased with their morning's work. Sussex were indebted initially to Matt Machin and Wright for getting them out of a sticky situation. They were still together as the afternoon session got underway, one where Durham would have been hopeful of a few more wickets to ensure that they weren't going to be left out in the field as long as they were in their last game against Yorkshire. So there were smiles all round for Durham when Rushworth found the inside edge of Machin's bat to have him taken behind for 22 at 115 for 5. All but Yardie had made it into double figures, but had then got out, and Sussex needed a prolonged partnership from some pair to restore parity. Wright continued to play positively in spite of the situation. He offered a half chance to Wood on his follow-through. They are of course never easy, but Phil Mustard's reaction behind the stumps suggests that he thought the chance should have been taken. Mustard may have also been a little frustrated that he'd dropped Brown early on in his innings. And they were the last chances the champions were to have for the rest of the day, as Wright and Brown then produced a stunning 6-wicket partnership to put their side well on top. Wright's innings was filled with superb strokes. He was especially good on the drive, and such a shot took him to his half-century. He'd needed 77 balls for this one, an innings which had thus far included 6 boundaries. But as Durham were about to discover, this was just the start from the impressive all-rounder, a man who missed the start of this season to be with his wife and newborn child in Australia. He was brilliantly backed up by Brown, a man who is getting better and better as each season passes by. He's become a very dependable wicketkeeper batsman, and while there is so much talk of who will wear the gauntlets for England this summer, Brown perhaps should not be ruled out himself. Sometimes you can't really tell him apart from Matt Pryor the way he plays his cricket. He reached his first 50 of this summer off 76 deliveries. He could have been run out in getting there, but Mustard's throw missed the stumps and gave Brown a 5 to go with his 7 fours. He was a little relieved to still be there, and he now ensured that he made the most of that start. When Scott Borthwick was the 7th bowler employed by Collingwood, the run rate began to pick up as Sussex now took control of the game at this early stage. Once in, Wright played some wonderful shots as they kept going until tea and then beyond as their partnership grew into something rather large. For the second game in a row, the Durham attack was struggling to do what they needed to do, and the chances of them conceding well in excess of 500 runs in the first innings again was increasing with each shot. Indeed, with Onions only able to bowl 8 overs because of a back injury, the boundaries started to come thick and fast from this pair, who started to break records in the evening session as their partnership hit dreamland. Wright's 13th 4 took him to his sensational century, which had used up 152 balls. By now, this had become the highest ever 6-wicket partnership by any team against Durham, and the 255 put together by K.S. Dulip-Singh and Maurice Tate back in 1930 as Sussex's best ever for this wicket was also broken. If anything, Brown's 100 was even more impressive than Wright's very impressive one. It was only the 5th time that the keeper had reached 3 figures in the first-class game, and what a knock it was, occupying only 128 balls, 14 of which he'd smashed to the boundary. Unsurprisingly, Durham's heads were beginning to drop. So many of the shots were out of the very top draw, as these two now produced the highest ever partnership for any wicket against Durham. Wright produced an innings like this at Lord's last season, as well as for the England Lions. This was all against a very talented Durham attack even without Onions, but one which is clearly not at its very best right now. When Wright and Brown came together, the run rate was at less than 4 per over. It was now above 4.5. Durham simply had no answer to what was now becoming an onslaught. Yet another boundary, the 22nd off the bat of Wright, now took him to his 150. It was fast becoming one of the best performances with the bat this summer, and there appeared to be no end in sight as Sussex eased to the maximum amount of batting bonus points. Brown matched Wright shot for shot, and in doing so, he went to the best score of his career, beating the 112 he's made twice before in the first-class game. He too was by now unstoppable, as the pair took their incredible partnership into the 300s. What's more, neither player gave a real chance latterly as they entertained to put their side into a terrific position, even after just one day of this contest. Some might have started to have some sympathy for the visiting attack, who were, in the latter stages of the day, smashed to all parts. By the close, these two batsmen had struck 188 runs in 4s alone, and Wright was closing in on the best score of his career. That was the 187 he made at the home of cricket last season. Collingwood ended the day by calling upon his 8th bowler, Mark Stoneman. A poor short ball was pulled to the fence to take Brown to 150 for the very first time. He's a come off 189 balls, and that was his 20th boundary. At the close, the two had been together for 66.5 overs, in which they'd taken their amazing stand to 326. They still have some way to go for their county's best ever. That stands at 490. Wright will go again on the second morning on 183 and Brown on 152, and they've taken their side to the wonderful position of 441 for 5 after just one day. Expect a few more runs to come yet too.